Yep, let's go ahead and get started. Well, thank you guys again for joining us. We are really looking forward to kicking this webinar off about Agile buy-in. And at the end, or toward the end of the webinar, we're excited to kind of present a new project that we're working on in collaboration with you all. So we can't wait for you to be a part of that. Jesse, I am really looking forward to us getting started. So let's go ahead and kick it off. Thanks so much. And we will, I'm sorry, to rewind a bit. If you have any questions or anything you guys want to kind of step in and talk about, use the QA feature, use the chat feature, and I'll be monitoring those throughout the webinar as well. So without further delay, we will get started.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Good morning, afternoon, evening to you, my friends and colleagues. Super excited to have you here on a Friday. We are going to talk about this challenge. How do we get people on the Agile train? How do we get them on the Agile bandwagon? I mean, what do we do? And so you and I, as champions for better ways of working, more collaboration, more innovation, more alignment, more, often run into resistance and inertia and ick. So what are we going to do? And want to share with you a couple of thoughts about some of this pain, because it's really frustrating. Some of you have been with me on this journey for years, and all you get is a little bit of the you know, like the so-and-so is talking about this Agile thing just to make us work more hours, or so-and-so is just advocating this latest fad. You know, I'm 2 years from retirement. I'm not even gonna worry about it. Or even my favorite one is, why are you pushing this? Nothing's wrong. Nothing's changed. Everything's fine. What's going on? So I know a lot of you have been excited and to jump in today to talk about this. So because we're all dealing with it. So a little bit about me, in case we haven't met, in case you're new to the conversation, new to the tribe and to the group. I serve as an Agile advocate, an innovation advocate, helping people across the world. I've had the privilege of working through this conversation with the project management community and PMI, and helped work with the Agile Alliance to write the Agile Practice Guide. It's one of a variety of publications I've contributed to. I have seen this Agile train in a lot of different tracks, whether it's different countries, different industries, different contexts, different sizes of organizations, vendors, and all of that stuff. So there are some patterns, and we're going to be talking a little bit about those patterns. And I do have some credentials that, whatever. It just means that I like to read, and we get to see some of those ideas coming together. Here's the general agenda. We're going to talk about 2 approaches to getting buy-in. And then once we discover what those 2 different approaches are, it turns out there's a normal, conventional way of getting buy-in, and then there's a better way. And then we're going to talk about, for the better way, there are 2 steps, 2 sides of it. These are organizational perspective on buy-in, and then there's buy-in at a personal level. And we're going to try to blitz through this quick enough so that we get time for some Q&A. And Taylor is going to be looking at the Q&A section so that as we go through this and you're inspired to share a question or concern, feel free to type it in, and she'll be looking at that and giving us a chance to talk about those when we're done. Also, we're going to be talking about 3 personas of influencers, 3 different kinds of people that we want to get buy-in from. And the first one is that thought leader, that team leader, that senior contributor who has influence on the teams, on the staff. They're looked to as a mentor. They may not have direct reports, but they do have influence, and we need them on board with this journey. The other persona is a manager, any kind of manager, program manager, PMO manager, department manager, someone who's got direct reports, who has influence as a result, but might be a little bit concerned about preserving their role in the organization as is. And so there's some concerns there. And then thirdly, of course, we need executive buy-in. We hear it all the time. We need senior leadership to get on board. because they're the ones who are the stewards of the organization's mission, and where the team lead might be more about the mechanics, and the manager is more about the meaning of what we're doing and what's on the meaning of a day-to-day work as it relates to the mission, that middle kind of area. So 3 different personas, and what we're going to find is that we need leaders at all levels. So yeah, Agile is good for some things, but it's not for us because our compliance rules require real documents. It's not for us because we can't staff fully allocated teams. And it's not for us because we have a critical mission. It's good. It's good. It's adorable. That's so cute. The Agile thing. Go away. Any of you heard that one before? So how are we going to tell the story in a way that can resonate with these influencers? Because without these influencers, we're only going to be skin deep Agile. We're going to be a fake Agile or sugar high Agile. It's just not going to be real. So as we do this, we're going to tell some real stories. These are, I've got a couple of them that are some doozies. And I want to see which ones of these resonate with you most, because there's going to be a chance for you to share your own story. Taylor alluded a little bit to a special project, and we're going to share with that as we go on. So that's the agenda, and so we want to get straight into it. There are 2 different approaches to getting buy-in, and I think the most common approach that we see comes from the Scaled Agile framework. Just full disclosure, I am a certified Scaled Agile practitioner. I believe this method offers a lot of value. The framework is a very valuable framework in a variety of contexts. It is the #1 most popular method to scale Agile methods beyond a single team. That being said, this is the change management strategy. And you're like, okay, cool. All right, we're going to go Agile across the organization. These guys have got a plan. Let's see what their plan is. And their plan is, step 1, waterfall ad hoc Agile. Step 2, go safe. Whoa, wait a second. What? Yeah, you just reached the tipping point. Okay, but how? Just do it. Then once you have the tipping point, once you have a critical mass of buy-in, then we can do all this stuff. So go ahead, go make that happen. But how? But who? What am I supposed to say? I mean, I've got one Agile project over here. It's doing pretty good. I got another team that's just getting started. I don't have a tipping point. I don't have a critical mass. What am I supposed to do? How do I get people on the Agile bandwagon in the first place? Because your Agile bandwagon might not be an Agile bandwagon. It might just be an Agile horse with you walking behind it, saying, picking up a lot of the crumbs and all of the mess and all of that. How do we do this? So even in the Agile context, there's a lot of assumptions and a little bit of a hand waving. So here's our normal approach. Here's how it usually happens. #1, explain Agile. #2, install a framework. #3, complain how everyone does it wrong. I'm telling the truth. You know that's how you roll. I know because I've done it. And we wonder why people aren't excited about jumping on the bandwagon of judgment, and jumping on the bandwagon of you don't get it, and jumping on the bandwagon of you're all wrong, and you're command and control, and you're all waterfall. You should just be better. I know better. Listen to me. Probably not going to get you some traction. And the reason for this is because it's compelling. If you start first with the manifesto for software, Agile software and Agile product. Oh, it is beautiful. It is our scripture. We love it. Oh, this resonates deeply with people to the tune of changing an entire industry, to the tune of connecting with millions and millions of people across the world. And so it's a call to action. It's a call to a movement. But what about those people who don't respond to the call? So this was enough to get you and me on board, but it's not enough to get everybody on board. It's not everybody sees this. Not everybody connects to it. And so this is usually where we start. Agile means this. Great. Why should I care? Who wouldn't care about this? Half of everybody else. That's who wouldn't care about this. And that's the challenge, is that what they care about is not what we care about. Because they're like, rapid change. Websites. No documentation. Good luck with that. That's not us. My job is documentation. So if you're telling me we're going to a place where there's no documentation, you're telling me I don't have a job. So I wonder why I'm not supporting that. And then, but that sounds good for forward-thinking industries. We're government, or we're medical, or we're aerospace. We don't do change. Really? Well, maybe we need to have a conversation. A better approach to the conversation would be, number one, ask. Ask people where they are. 2, find an Agile-related outcome, an Agile-related benefit, and then explain something. So stop telling, start asking. A normal approach, a better approach. We want to dig into this a little bit more because it's a little bit counterintuitive, and for a lot of us, it's just fundamentally time consuming. And who has time? Who has time to sit down and say, what are your feelings about work? It's totally obvious that this way is better, but I'm going to sit here and patronize you by listening to the fact that you just don't who wants to deal with those people? Except we have to, because they're the ones that are the influencers that we need in order to drive a broader organizational impact. So why is this more effective? Well, because the research tells us. The research comes, one of my favorite research books is by Jeffrey Hyatt, and he is a change management researcher. And what he has found in this book, and we're going to explore this a little bit more, is that successful organizational change is much simpler than getting this process and getting that policy and getting these people and getting. It's really, organizational change boils down to people. And how do we deal with the people side of change? Not the mechanics, not the structures, not the policies, not the metrics. That stuff's easy. It's actually also, for a lot of us, the most interesting part, because it's, so those of us who have more kind of like a technical or an engineering, we like to kind of coordinate things and that, mechanics, metrics, policies. But what about the people side of change? Well, let's talk about that. In the research, it comes down to 5 key steps. Here's the change management science that that anybody going through a change, whether it's a new job, whether it's finding a partner or a spouse, or whether it's getting into parenthood, or needing to go through a medical procedure in order to get rid of a condition, we need to start first with awareness for the context, awareness for the change. Why are we doing this? And then it's not enough to know that smoking is bad for you. I have to want it. Oh yeah, smoking is bad for me. Yeah, but I've decided it's just not worth change, quitting. So how do we build desire for change? And then there's the knowledge about what kind of changes are we talking about? What is the impact, whether it's maybe getting more diet and exercise. Yeah, I know more diet and exercise. I know that, and I really want it, but how? How can I do that? Okay, yeah, time management, but now I need the ability to manage my time more effectively. And that might come in the way of hiring a personal trainer who creates external accountability. It might come in the way of blocking off time in my calendar to do the things I want to do. And then reinforcement. How do we keep it going so it sticks long term? So this is what the science tells us. And yet, when it comes to agile transformations, adoptions, and journeys, here's what tends to happen. We skip all of the people stuff and go straight into the mechanical stuff because that's cool, because it's tangible. The people stuff, I don't want to sit and explain to you why smoking's bad. It's obvious. I don't want to have to create a desire inside of you to, better eating and better living. I mean, that's exhausting. I want to go straight to the cool stuff where we're hitting the gym, and I want to go straight to the cool stuff where we're going hiking. But oh man, I got all this blocking and tackling. Like, how do we explain that Agile is a better way for each employee, that's specific to that employee? That's exhausting. How many employees do we have? How do we explain? How do we engage people on the idea that Agile matters to them when we're saying it doesn't? This is work, and it's hard work, and it's the work that is critical to buy-in, and we skip it all the time. See this pattern happening over and over and over again. So what we want to do is explore building awareness and desire, awareness of the external drivers for change, like disruption, like existential threats, competitive threats, and then building an internal desire for the change as well. And that might be what's rewarding to me, what's motivating to me. And so these two angles of context, these two sides of the coin about how we are going to tap into the emotional side of change and the rational side of change, as opposed to just the technical and physical side of change, that's going to be what we're going to take a look at a little bit more. So let's start. Awareness, okay? Awareness, what does that mean? Awareness of the external drivers for change it tends to be the best place to start the organizational conversation. Who are we? Where are we? What matters to us? And when it comes to awareness, there's a great quote here that Simon Sinek walked us through. He said, nobody buys what you do it. No, nobody buys what you do. They buy why you do it. This is like one of the top 3 most popular TED Talks of all time. And it's popular because it resonates deeply and happens to be based on neuroscience. The science tells us that 95% of all decisions that people make are subconscious. And subconsciously, below the rational mind, below the conscious mind, there's some things going on. There's some things going on inside of people. And one of the ways he describes is, you ever been in a meeting where you explain an obvious opportunity where there's a clear ROI and the leader says, yeah, I get your facts and figures. It just doesn't feel right. What do you mean it doesn't feel right? Who makes instincts based on their gut, except 95% of every decision by every person? Now, we do make those subconscious decisions with the influence of data, with the influence of return and reward that our rational mind bakes into the subconscious. So it's there, it's just not explicit. It's not cause and effect. It's much more nuanced. And so what Simon challenges us is that explaining doesn't cut it. So explaining tends to be what we like to do. It tends to be the most straightforward thing to do, but it's not going to connect. It's a longer term cognitive process that bakes in, and we got to find a way to tap into something a little bit more effectively. And that might be with some sticks and some carrots and sticks. So when we talk about organizational buy-in, when we talk about awareness for the need for change, let's start with some fear and loathing, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And then we're going to get to some promise and opportunity and some carrots. How about that? So go to a leader, go to a manager, go to the tech lead and ask them, what are you most concerned about? It's a future-oriented question. It's outside of my immediate context. What are you concerned about? And at the organizational level, what a lot of people might not be aware of that they need to be concerned about is your product is old news. This is one of my favorite graphics that comes out of the Harvard Business Review. And it tells us the lifespan of a phone. So here in the blue, at the beginning of the 20th century, some of you have seen me share this with you, the landline telephone was only for the rich. And there was a limited adoption here of 20–40% of the market getting it until the Second World War. And then that which was a luxury became a necessity. And then boom, we hit market saturation. 80% of the market has a landline by 1980. It took 80 years to hit saturation. Here comes the mobile phone in 1980. You guys remember Michael Douglas in Wall Street? Hi, I'm really rich. I got a brick phone. It's super awesome. There, it took a solid 10 years to start getting traction in the market. And then in 20 years, we hit saturation. Not 80, 20. And then here comes the smartphone. And the smartphone doesn't take 20 years to hit saturation. It takes 15. And this pattern of compressed market saturation timelines is happening over and over and over again with all the major innovations of the 20th century into the 21st century. Electricity started way at the beginning, and it took half a century to get critical mass. But then here comes the refrigerator. It started 30 years later, and it hit saturation about the same time. So now, not half a century, but a quarter century to get saturation. And then what about the color TV? Color TV is not until 1960. We had TV forever. TV, and then boom, in 20 years, it hit saturation. And then the cell phone, and then the internet. And so what we're seeing is that whatever you've done, senior leader, department manager, product manager, innovator, whatever you've built is about to be obsolete. I like to joke with software people and technology people with the question of, do you know what a legacy system is? A legacy system is the thing you just put into production. It's the thing you just rolled out. Guess what? You now have to treat it as old news because more is coming. So then the workplace is different. I'm sure you've noticed that by now, there are more and more women entering into the workplace. We now have more women graduating from college than men. We also, speaking of college, have the most educated workforce we've ever had. In the military, there are NCOs with master's degrees that are more educated than their commanding officers. And we're seeing more generations in the workplace. Boomers are still crushing it. And you've got the Gen Xers, and we've heard a lot about the millennials, but now we've got Gen Z, the fourth generation, rising in. These are the brand new entrants into the workforce, whereas millennials have been in the workforce now upwards of 10 years. So lest you think that this is strictly for some industries, this actually comes from the Chartered Institute for Professional Development. This is the Department of Labor analog in the United Kingdom. So this is happening not just in some industries, but in every industrialized country in the world. The workplace is changing. Today, people are willing to give up some of their salary so that they can work from home. And so, Mr. Leader or Ms. Manager, the workforce is not interested in working for you as much as they used to, unless we adapt, unless we respond to the dynamics in the market. Oh, but by the way, the competition is real. I know a lot of people who like to say, well, we're government-based, and so we don't have competition. Oh, really? Except Amazon, except Google. Amazon's stated mission purpose is world domination. I know a lot of government agencies that fear what's called shadow IT for the technology space, which is people that are going outside of conventional channels with the appropriate permissions. In fact, if you look at this commercial example here, 88% of the Fortune 500 companies back in 1960, they're not there anymore. You guys remember Pan American Airways? Or maybe a little bit more recently, Circuit City or Lehman Brothers. Change is happening. In fact, today you're lucky, whereas before companies would spend 60 years, that's what this y-axis, 60 years on the S&P 500. Today you're lucky if your company is spending 15 years on the S&P 500. So what we're seeing is that organizations are under an existential threat from every angle. And if you're a bank, it's called fintech. Wake up, it's coming, it's already happened. If you're in medicine, you want to tell me that the health insurance conversation is stable? I don't think so. So here's a little bit of the stick, the fear about why we need awareness about the organizational change that and how it's going to be relevant to us. Maybe a carrot. Maybe Maybe what we need is a softer approach, or maybe a more positive spin. And that might be something around the question of why Agile methods, what benefits, what are the drivers? And so for this, we're going to do a poll. I'm clicking on the polly poll. And I want to ask you guys a question, which is, the question is, what is the top, or what are the top reasons for Agile adoption? What what do you tend to see as being the top drivers? One option might be speed, another might be flexibility, another might be morale, another might be alignment with the business, and another one might be around quality. So I'm going to share this out with you guys, and I'm curious to see what you think. What's the top reason that people go Agile? So speed is ironically very quickly popping out to the top. We're getting a few more answers. A few more thoughts around this. People are, Peter is also kind of texting in the chat here about saying that speed to market. Renee had some good comments here. So let's, I think most of us have already, so let's, speed, that's what we believe in. Yeah, speed. Well, what is, but also, some of you are saying, well, actually, the number one reason for some organizations might be flexibility to adapt to change. It might be alignment with our customers and our stakeholders. So what did it say? What's the data? Well, the data comes from the 13th Annual State of Agile Report. This is hot off the press. It came out just a month or so ago. And they asked all the Agile people in the world, hey, Agile people, why did you go Agile in the first place? And look at that. Yes, indeed, speed is the number one most popular answer. But look at the top four, which resonated with at least half of every Agile journey. Half of every person who went on an Agile organizational journey was driven by speed, change, productivity, and alignment. And so those tend to be the number one drivers, the number one pain points. Why? What's your number one pain point, team lead? I'll tell you, my number one pain point is we're not getting anywhere. We're just talking, and we're talking all the time. I just want to get back to the work that I love. Oh, okay, interesting. Well, wouldn't you know, that tends to be a key driver around Agile methods. Another question might be, okay, that's why Agile, and that's why people go on this journey. But is that what you actually get? So it's interesting to see that what the emotional drivers are for program managers, department heads, or executives, or even team leads, and why they're driving this Agile conversation. Look what's down low at the bottom is morale. Morale is not a key driver most of the time. Cost cutting, you know, there's 40% of the time cost cutting but it's not the most common. Isn't that interesting that what resonates with why people go Agile is not what you can think of? But when it comes to the actual benefits, the so what Agile, well, it turns out that, yeah, we get basically the same thing. So the key thing around Agile methods is to understand that we want to first get buy-in by creating awareness on the global scale, awareness on an industrial scale, awareness on an organizational scale about how there really is an existential threat, in many cases, a stick beating down on us, and we need to respond to that existential threat. And then two, there's the opportunity to have some of our greatest pains alleviated. So if my greatest pain is that we're too slow, Agile methods correlate. If my greatest pain is that we're not aligned and people are always yelling at us, Agile methods align to that. So what about the next part of buy-in, the desire? What does that look like? Well, we got some stories that we're going to tap into with our 3 personas. Remember these 3? Well, compliance rules require these documents, so Agile's not for us, or we can't staff fully allocated teams, because you tell me Agile's all about fully allocated teams, and if that's what Agile's all about, I just can't do that, so maybe we're not going to bother. And then the senior leader says, well, we've got some other critical initiatives like this or that, and we can't do it. So how do we build personal desire inside each of these leaders for the change? We've shown them the graphs that we saw about competition and change, and we've told them about the existential threat. They're just not feeling it. They're just not, that awareness wasn't enough to create an emotional reaction. So how do we do that? Well, the way we do it is we stop selling and start aligning. Stop selling Agile. Stop explaining it and stop pushing it, and instead start asking questions. That's how you create a connection with other people. That's how you build a shared understanding, if you've heard that Agile phrase before. So what does that mean, Jesse? That sounds a little simplistic. Well, let's get into it. Selling is where I'm trying to get you to my perspective. I believe in my bones that Scrum is the answer to world peace. I believe in my bones Scrum is the answer to world hunger. And if you just understood what I understand, then you'll be with me and you'll be where I'm at, and it'll be awesome. That's selling. The problem with selling is sometimes people don't buy. On the other hand, what if we moved towards aligning, where we sit down and we share thoughts and we go, so from your perspective, what do you see? Here's what I see from my perspective. Well, what's in common? How can 2 opposing things be simultaneously true? Well, okay, we do need to be efficient, but we also need to be innovative. So how we have to be both of those things. Can we be both of those things? How do we do that? That dialogue is one that requires you to ask first and tell second. Ask first, tell second. Stop selling, start aligning. Here's what it looks like for the team lead. We got a team lead, and what's on his mind with most individual contributors, senior contributors, they just want to do good work. They're good at their jobs, and that's what's rewarding. And to take pride in the work I do every day, whether it's writing specifications that are detailed and complete and accurate, whether it's building products that are high quality and with few defects, or whether it's something that's truly new and innovative and adding value. I want to do good work, and I want my work to have an impact. I want to be able to see how the work that I do can impact my customers, my stakeholders, and maybe add value to them. That's what's on my mind. So if that's the case, then we've got a normal team lead scenario. Hi, I'm an Agile guy with the tie. Agile guy with the tie. Woo, people over process. Team lead says, fair enough. What do you think that means? Or tell me what that means. I'm curious. Well, team lead, we use Scrum. It's awesome. We're going to do sprint planning, and then we'll do sprint planning, and then we're going to have daily Scrum. And then in daily Scrum, after we do that, then we're going to go into our grooming and refinement meeting. And then after we do the refinement meeting, then we're going to go into an estimation meeting. And after we do the estimation meeting, then we'll go into the review, and then we'll do a retrospective, and then we'll do that. It's all about people. And then the team lead's thinking, sounds a lot like meetings. Sounds like I'm not doing the work I love to do. No thanks. Because you explained it from the manifesto. And then you explained a framework, And for some reason, it didn't connect. It didn't resonate. What if the conversation went a little bit differently? What if you asked first about the pain points the team lead is suffering? You tell me how to sell to you. Well, my technical skills and the team, they're haphazard. I'm working 60, 70 hours because not everybody's doing the work the right way. I wish we had just a higher level of talent base on my team. And yeah, so that's what's really worrying me these days. That's what's bothering me. It's my pain point. And you remember from the outcomes in the survey that, hey, nearly half of all Agile practitioners report increased engineering discipline. That means you've got just about a better heads or tails shot if we try some of these techniques that other people use. And oh, really? Well, I've tried a lot of things. I'm willing to try some other things in order to improve discipline and excellence and skill set. Tell me more. And now you have the invitation to explain. Now you have the invitation, and I recommend at this point you talk about one or two techniques and you don't avalanche them with behavior-driven development. You don't avalanche them with DevOps. You just say, here's 2 or 3 things that I think might help. And then boom, you've got a shared understanding. You're coming to alignment. All right, so that's the team lead. What about the managers? Oh my goodness. Those managers, especially middle managers. Agile is all about an uprising. There's an organization called Agile Uprising, with grassroots. It's all about practitioners. And then we have these leaders. They've got this vision about building high performance organizations and wonderful places to work. And then we've got the middle managers. You people, program managers, PMO managers, and department managers, and project managers. Bleh. Well, they're actually people. And these people tend to be in the positions that they're in because they're very results oriented. There's a leadership model, the leadership agility model characterizes people in this role often as achievers. Achievers are those leaders who've gotten ahead in their career by getting results, by coordinating different people towards a goal and getting it done. And so what's on my mind is I want those results. And I want a good track record of how we've been able to do this and get this done and get this done. I'm less interested in the details as a manager. I trust my team lead and my senior contributors, my talent here. But I'm very, very passionate about making sure that we get the right things done. So with that case, and if that's the case, then here I come. I've got some Agile. It's all about customer collaboration. Oh, okay. That's interesting. Tell me more. Well, it means that all your people are going to go into Scrum teams, cross-functional, totally empowered. They're going to have a product owner, so they don't need you anymore. Isn't that cool? Are you totally on board with being irrelevant and adding no value? You want to buy in? What do you think they're going to say? Not so much. Instead, what if we ask those managers a question? What are your pain points? What worries you? What would motivate you to make any kind of change at all? And then the manager might say, well, that customer collaboration thing, I wish. I got angry stakeholders, no matter what we do, or disappointed, frustrated. I think they're all working with positive intent. I don't think they're intentionally malicious. I just don't know what to do. It's frustrating. It's discouraging. Well, good thing I'm here. I'm an Agile champion. I happen to know in the literature, 2/3 of all Agile teams report increased alignment with customers. Did you know that? Really? Tell me more. And at this point, I probably offer one or two techniques like having more frequent dialogue, like asking for a partner-based approach to leading initiatives instead of throwing it over the fence. Like having much the way we have a fully allocated initiative leader, product manager on our side, maybe we need a fully allocated sponsor on their side. And let's just start with that. Oh, that's interesting. And so now we're aligned. We have a shared understanding rather than me selling you on Scrum. Oh, that sounds pretty interesting. There's some potential there, Jesse. But you know what? No, it doesn't work on executives. Executives are arrogant. their heads in the skies, and they're running around moving decks on the deck chair with the latest reorg. I work with senior leaders a lot, and let me just tell you, most senior leaders are interested in having a differentiating organization. They want to have a legacy that sticks. They want to have an imprint on the organization that they've been given. And so there's a very real pressure to perform. There's a very real pressure to drive some kind of momentum around that. And so granted, some leaders, some senior leaders, some executives might have a different leadership style, a different leadership toolkit. Almost every leader I talk to in the senior role is thinking about some of these things, how to build a better organization. And so, yeah, that's good. I'm here to help. Hi, I'm Agile. Agile's all about building culture, a culture that's resilient to change. Oh, tell me more. Well, okay. It means you're a jerk. You're a command and control leader. And we're going to replace your leadership style with a servant leadership, because that's better. Because I'm Agile and you're not. You're welcome. Probably not the best pitch. Probably not a good idea to lead with senior leaders about servant leadership is better than your leadership. And, what if instead we stop explaining and we start asking? So what's your major pain point? Here, I'm a change leader. I'm here to help evolve us to a better way of working. What are the pain points we need to solve? What do we need to evolve towards? Well, I'll tell you what we need to evolve towards. We need to be more competitive. We can innovate pretty good, but we take too long. And every manager I talk to tells me that we can't do this and we can't do that, and that they're constrained, and all they keep asking for is more headcount, more headcount, more headcount, and I'm just exhausted. That's interesting. Did you know that you're not alone? That the number one driver for agility and digital transformations is speed to market? Did you know that 3/4 of everyone who goes in that direction actually gets it done? So not only are you not alone, but there are some proven ways to achieve a little bit of progress on that. Ooh, tell me more. And here I would recommend maybe one or two meaningful recommendations, like, here's an idea. Let's authorize exactly half the number of projects this year relative to the number we authorized last year, and nothing else. And then that way, we focus all of our resources, all of our people on getting just those done. What if that's the only change we made at an organizational level? Ooh, interesting. So we can double our focus, and by doubling our focus, we might double our speed to market. Now, that's a good conversation. So 3 scenarios, the team lead, the manager, and the executive. And in each scenario, what we want to do is we want to stop selling and start aligning. Stop telling, start asking. Build a shared understanding. Meet your audience where they are. Don't demand them to come where you are, because they're not ready. The question on buy-in is really not them buying into you, but you buying into them. So that's the key thrust of what we're talking about. Start first by asking, find an agile outcome that resonates with them, and then begin trickling in techniques that fit that narrative. Some general tips: when you go asking these questions, you might get some funny answers. So I've heard a lot of these. One of them is, we need to scale our Scrum. We need to scale our SAFe. We need to scale our pods and our user stories across the organization. We need more consistency. And I challenge team leads, managers, and executives on this. I said, well, so what I hear you saying is you want everyone, that you want your legacy and your imprint to be on the organization, to be that everyone is exactly the same. And we're all working like robots without creativity or individuality. That's what consistency means. Not like, no. We're really talking about repeatability, scalability, sustainability. These are organizational outcomes. The word consistency is sometimes misused, and it has connotations that might bring us to maybe some negative side effects, like copy-paste Agile, like one-size-fits-all Agile. So beware of the word consistency. Probe on that a little bit when you hear it. When you ask a question, so what's your number one concern? Oh, my number one concern is that we got chaos. We need more consistency. Okay, tell me more. What would good consistency look like? What would be the right balance? Another one, we can innovate a little bit, but we need to be more efficient. Efficiency is like, well, okay. What do you mean by that? Do you truly mean the true definition of efficiency, which is ROI and cost cutting? Because a lot of times when I probe and I ask, they're really talking about efficiency as a synonym for high performance, for technical excellence, for just good work. Efficiency sometimes means, I want to come into the office and see my office humming. And it's like a well-oiled machine. That's what efficiency means to me, even if it costs me a little more money. Oh, so you're not interested in ROI as much as you are in productivity and excellence. Okay, cool. And then finally, one of my favorites is when you start going on this approach, you stop telling and you start asking, and you want to build a shared understanding and align. And okay, so what are your number one pain points, and what's interesting to you about this Agile conversation? We're not sure yet. We've got a 3-month project to find out why we need to go Agile. Okay, so then why are we having this conversation? Well, we just know we need to. What led you to that conclusion? Well, everyone else is doing it. Aha. Then you are feeling the need to be relevant. You are feeling the need to be competitive. And you're hearing that there's change in the industry, and that there's a more modern way of doing work, more collaboration, more iteration. And you want to be a part of that. You want to be part of that instead of being left behind. Okay, so we can talk about that. And in fact, we actually can measure your practices against industry benchmarks. There's a tool called comparativeagility.com, and it's a survey that you conduct with your staff and your managers, and you ask them, what's the maturity of your day-to-day practices? And then you get a data that comes back and it says, you're actually right about the level of maturity for your industry. That would be a successful Agile story. That would get some buy-in, because now we have the opportunity, we know where we are, we have the opportunity to get ahead. So another tip. So tip number one, when you go about, beware that you might get some roadblocks and kind of answers that you don't like, and you just probe them a little bit more. You might get some more relevant answers. Another tip, practice telling your story. Practice this. Practice talking about the benefits people have gotten, measured and quantitative benefits. So we're excited to announce on this webinar the launching of AgileLeadershipStories.com. And on this webpage, we're asking you, how did you overcome these challenges? Buy-in is only one of them. Maybe your challenge was less about buy-in, but it was about something else. Getting practices to fit. SAFe doesn't fit, or Scrum doesn't fit. We do Kanban, but we don't do it right. How do we change our leadership habits? Getting changes to stick, and then the expectation versus reality on Agile stuff. Then again, maybe it really was buy-in. Maybe you do have a story about getting buy-in or overcoming resistance to the buy-in conversation and getting alignment. We want to hear your story. So when you get a chance, hop over to AgileLeadershipStories.com, pump in a little bit of information, and I'll reach out to you, and we can decide if this story that you're sharing is just you and me talking shop, or if the story needs to become a little bit of a webinar of its own, or if your story is so cool and compelling that it needs to be featured in my upcoming book on Agile journeys and transformations. So that's what I wanted to share with you. We talked about 2 ways of doing things. We talked about the normal way of telling and a better way of asking. We talked about awareness and desire as a prerequisite to an Agile journey, and we almost always jump over that and go straight to training. And we also talked about that nobody buys what you do, they buy why you do it. What's the driver? Awareness. And then also, what's in it for me? Maybe it's about my legacy. Maybe it's about getting better results. Maybe it's about me doing wonderful work. And so that's where we want to pause. And then maybe reach out to you guys and ask you for some of your own thoughts and questions. Taylor?
We actually do have a couple of questions, and really fast. I did put the link to Agile Leadership Stories in the chat if you just want to highlight, copy, and paste that so you don't have to try to remember it. And then additionally, your stories will not be posted for public unless that's something that you and Jesse, when you talk, decide you want, just to fully explain that they are confidential in case you had any concern about, you know, that story getting out, and maybe you just wanted Jesse's advice and not for the world. So just wanted to throw that out there. We do have a couple of questions. I'm going to start with some real quick ones. Jesse, is the comparative agility site available to all, or is that something that someone would need to purchase or get through a trainer?
Well, it's certainly available for purchase.
Okay.
But if you are, or you know someone that holds a certified Scrum professional designation from the Scrum Alliance, then you have free access. It's a benefit of achieving the certified Scrum professional level, which is the third level beyond CSM, CSPO, advanced CSM, CSPO, and certified Scrum professional for Scrum Masters and product owners. If you achieve that level, then you do have free access to the tool so that you can help guide the Agile journey on your practices. So if you don't have a CSP, maybe you know one. And if you don't know one, reach out to me. I'll help you find one.
And what kind of business manager would I be if I did not say we can also help you on that journey if you're not a CSP and are looking to become one? So just
or
keep that in mind.
if you are a CSP and you have access to it, but you don't want the headache of running it, we run the assessments often for people to get a sense of where they are in their journey and relative to their competitors. So we help.
Awesome. So now just a little bit more detailed questions before we let everybody jump off. Renee has a story that she wanted to share as well. One of the members of her team is highly resistant to going Agile because he was a member of a 32-person team that did Scrum, and the morning stand-up meeting went on for an hour because there were so many team members. What are your thoughts on how to navigate that?
So this is another, this falls into the normal pattern of buy-in. Hey, let's go Agile. And immediately you just struck a nerve because Agile equals everything bad we did last year. So as soon as you get the sense that Agile is a bad word in your organization, stop using it. If you get a sense that Scrum is a bad word in your organization because it was done poorly, stop using that word. You're not going to get buy-in, ever. Instead, I would talk to that team lead about, what's a way that we can get on the same page faster, like in 5 minutes? How can we do that? Maybe we hop onto Slack for 5 minutes every morning and then start from there. Or maybe, what do you recommend, team lead? Because I agree with you. That a 30-person daily stand-up that lasts an hour, that's stupid. I would never do Scrum that way. No, I agree. So what do we do instead? And you might or might not get traction by saying, well, that's bad Scrum. That's not real Scrum. Real Scrum is beautiful. Real Scrum, explain. Real Scrum, better. And they're like, wah, 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 you've lost them. Don't use the poison words that poison people's opinions. Listen, ask, don't tell.
Thank you. That I agree with for sure. And I know we've all had some pain points there before too. We do have another question from Mark, and actually he has two questions. The quick one is, can the webinar go toward their Scrum SDUs? And I actually don't know the answer myself. So that, what do you think, Jesse? Okay.
When we send you we're going to email everybody a link to the recording, a link to the slides, and instructions on how to declare Scrum education units and PMI PDUs as well.
Awesome. So then another question from Mark is, what if you're new in your role and the conversation is just not strong with the veterans in the job? Trust will impact the buy-in. Are there some examples for newbies, I guess, in the Agile world to help overcome these trust issues?
Trust is earned. Trust is earned. So if you're new in an organization, new in a role, I would be a little, I would take a little bit of an emotional risk and just ask people. So, hey guys, I'm new here and I want to do a good job. What do you recommend? And so it might take you a while, especially if you're in an environment where there's some collective bargaining and people are very tight tribe. And as a tight tribe, newcomers are not often welcome. So build it slowly and build it authentically, and don't talk about Agile. Do you see a pattern here? The best way to sell Agile is not to talk about it. The best way to sell Agile is to start talking about people's pain points and where they're at. So tell me, what are you guys running into every day? And then let it simmer for days, weeks. And then maybe after you feel enough of a connection, you're like, you know what? I've shared that pain with you. I worked that weekend with you. And I've known all along how not to do it, but I've waited for the right moment. And now I'd like to share with you an idea that I have for one technique that maybe might help.
Perfect. So basically Agile's like Fight Club, the first rule of Fight Club.
Yeah. Another phrase, and I wrote a column on this that I might share in the follow-up email. Undercover Agile, covert Agile, guerrilla Agile, where you're guiding people through a journey without using any of the buzzwords, because the buzzwords invoke fear and they invoke resistance. So we're not going to use any buzzwords. We're going to use all of your words with the Agile mindset plugged in.
Awesome. Well, David also had a question for us about the path to CSP. Is it getting your CSM and your CSPO? And David, yes, that will be part of it, but I'm also going to reach out to you separately. So don't worry too much about that, and we'll get you some information. So thank you guys so much. I know that we're on the hour right now, and you guys have to get back to work or grab lunch or dinner, depending on your location. So I hope you enjoyed everything. Again, that link to share your stories is in our webinar chat. We will be emailing out this slide information as well as the link to share your stories, and the video recording will go on our YouTube channel. If you need anything, Jesse's email address is there. My email address is just taylor@jessefuel.com, and we are happy and here for anything you might need. And we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar later this summer.
All right. I just put Taylor's email address in the chat window if you guys want to reach out for any additional questions and ideas. You guys have been awesome. Thank you. Have a good weekend, and we'll be in touch soon.